That's cool. Hey, well, before we get started, let's open up with a short prayer. God, thank you so much for today and for this time. Lord, I pray you use this podcast. Lord, I pray that these words inspire somebody to move and you touch somebody through this conversation. We pray this in your name. Amen. Hey, gang, welcome back. We're back with another episode. And boy, I am so excited for this one. I'm going to learn about a lot. You're going to learn a lot. We got an exciting individual here next to us. The guest of honor, ladies and gentlemen, JT, man. Jonathan.
You can call me JT.
Jonathan, I call him JT. I like short names, man. And it's been a great privilege getting to know you, JT. And I think you have so much that I admire about you. You have this incredible energy, this confidence, and that's not just in yourself and in your business and your marriage, but in your faith. And then you speak very intentionally. You're not a person who just word vomits. You don't speak often, but when you speak, it's with conviction and intention, man. And I'm like, it just fires me up. So I'm excited for you to get to talk to the Why Not Me gang. Hey, JT, tell me something.
Let me
man.
say something
Go
real
ahead.
fast. Bro, you are the man, Kevin. I shared this verse with you yesterday, but 1 Thessalonians says it is a delight not only to share the gospel with you, but our life. And, bro, I just want to take a moment and tell you, I've shared this with you privately, but I'm going to say it publicly. I love you. As a friend, you make me a better man. You make me a better husband. You push me to Jesus. But I also respect you. I think one thing I've learned about you is that, sometimes I like to dream and be out in the clouds, and then I'll walk away from a meeting or hanging out, and you'll be like, here's the 10 steps how to get there. And you got a game plan. And so I thank you. Why Not Me is such a perfect podcast, such a frame of thinking, because that is who you are. It's not this theoretical idea. It's why not me? Here's how we do it. Let's get to work. So, bro, I respect you. I appreciate you, and I'm honored to be
About
here.
to make me cry on my podcast, man. It's getting dusty in here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I think so.
It's getting dusty. Dude, well, that means the world to me, and ditto, man, 1,000%.
We can also share on talent acquisition.
Dude, we can.
The highs, the lows.
We can. I think there's just so much. There's so much there. I think it's like this, for me, I see it as, there's a large level of similarity, but also a lot of complementary. Mm-hmm. So it's like we have this foundational similarity that really allows us to connect. And then like we're both learners and the complementary nature of who we are. Yeah. Like, I get to learn a lot from you, and hopefully I get to help you learn something 100%. As well. So yeah, that's really cool, man. Well, what you think, man? Tell me something.
Do you still believe God does miracles?
1,000%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I propose today that following Jesus was always meant to be a wild, crazy adventure. As we read the Bible, as we look at church history, as we study legends of the faith, I can't help but ask, why not me?
Dude. Yeah, 1,000%. I think that's incredible to think about, especially when I stepped into my faith walk. It's like you do this and you're set. You start walking a life with Christ, and you're all good. Yeah. And then it wasn't until later in my faith walk that I figured out, people started telling me like, hey, actually walking in faith is not easy. Wow. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not easy? They're like, well, there comes trial, adversity, testing, growing, pruning, development. So I think that's a beautiful, beautiful intro, man.
Yeah, I think like when I study the Bible and we look at life, I just come to this conclusion that we were created on purpose for such a time as this. Yeah. And as we kind of go out the journey of life, I think we all begin to ask, isn't there more than this? And I think that's where faith comes in. Obviously, it's foundational, but I believe that the purpose of life is to glorify God, and that He wants more for our life than we want for ourselves. So I'm excited to connect with you today, have a little church time, if you will, and get to it.
Who is JT?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Still trying to figure that out. Trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, when you asked me the other day to tell my story, share some principles, I appreciate it because it really kind of forced me to kind of write down my story, think about it. And really just my hope today is that, is to encourage, to reflect, to give glory to God, and also just say, man, let's believe God for bigger things. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what are you doing nowadays? What are you doing professionally? You're here. You have a
Hmm.
family. What gets you up in the morning?
Yeah. So professionally, I'm a corporate headhunter.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. So you and I have very similar talent acquisition. I'm more of the gunslinger slide. I usually partner with guys like you. I work for the Wimberley Group, incredible company, love it. God totally opened up a door there. I was a pastor for 5 years prior, still very much involved in ministry. That's not where I get my check from anymore. So yeah, love it and been enjoying it.
yeah. And I would argue that, like, from knowing you, you are not in ministry, but yet you are very much still doing ministry. And
Absolutely.
and like, who better to talk with hundreds, maybe thousands of people a year about their future, their purpose, their calling? I mean, I would trust that you're finding a way to put Jesus in those conversations somehow. Did you have any like heroes or role models growing up?
Absolutely.
Who?
So, I mean, you're asking celebrity kind of mindset. I think of people I knew. So, I think one thing that I am so grateful for in my life that has set my life apart is I have had mentors ever since I really began to follow Jesus. And that I've had people that have sat down with me from first time from early to being a baby Christian to really like asking what is my purpose. All throughout my life I've had mentors in my life who not only taught me lessons but did life with me. And so I mean, my first mentor was Ryan, my brother-in-law, then of course my dad, who just absolutely is still my mentor. Love him, has taught me so much. To Jerry, a mentor of mine, to Adam, to different men in my life who have saw things in me, who challenged me, who pushed me. I was sharing with you before the podcast that I used to be in a speaking pastoral role pretty often. One of my mentors would make me write out my message every week, and he would make me come to his office. I would give it to him, just the two of us, and then he would have a note, and he would like go through it and rip it apart theologically, from presentation. And so I hated it when it happened, but looking back, it formed muscles in me that would have taken me 10 years otherwise to form. So I've had a lot of heroes and mentors in my life.
Oh my goodness. Hold up. That's amazing. First
Yeah.
of all, I love how you just like lit up when I asked you that question
Yeah.
about like who are your role models and mentors. I also honor that you just openly and excitingly owned I've had a lot of heroes in my life. And here's why it struck me. As a man, for most of my life, it was this battle to be independent and self sufficient and have all the answers and do everything myself.
Yeah.
And you're like, nah, man, since I was growing up in my faith, I had a mentor, and I've learned that there is not it's not a luxury, it's a need. And there's real value in having people to help shape you.
Absolutely. Yes, I think I'm not great at a lot of things. One thing I would say, and you might agree with me that I'm good at, is asking questions. So I think early on, just having the audacity to ask men who I respected, who I saw something in, just to say, "Hey, listen, I'm curious. How did you do that? Teach me. Help me." And so because of that, I'm thankful for the connections that's made.
Yeah. Yeah. But that audacity, that's not normal. And I want to call that like that's an exceptional gift that you have
I
that I
appreciate it.
I would I would bet money that you probably think that's normal, and people just have that audacity. And I don't that's not, and I think it's really cool, and I want to highlight this. When we're going through life, let's have the audacity that JT has to ask questions
Mm,
of people who are where we want to be, of people who we love, that we admire. I think that's like the very crux of what we're getting at with Why Not Me,
yeah.
with CYM, with your life. And I don't think I've ever put the word audacity behind it.
Mm, let's go.
Yeah, let's be
Well, I
audacious.
think one of my favorite things, audacious, is God is great not just because nothing is too big for him. God is also great because nothing is too small for him. And when I think about audacity, I think sometimes we have the fear of saying, man, I don't want to ask God for big things. I don't want to ask God to help me with this, whatever it is, my daily task. And I think quite the opposite. I think it's easy to pray these lofty prayers like, oh, God, help me with this, let me win the lottery, whatever the massive thing is. I think it takes audacity to say, God, I believe you're great not just because nothing is too big for you. I also believe nothing's too small for you. And so therefore, I have the audacity to say, God, I'm going to ask you for this thing that's in front of me. Number one, because it shows that I'm dependent upon you. Because I'm asking, I'm actually humbling myself and saying, God, I recognize that in and of myself, I don't have the ability to accomplish this. The second thing is, when we do that, it invites God into the process. And so I would say have the audacity to ask God for the little things and the big things. But
Have the audacity to invite God in the big and the little things. Every part of the process. I'm glad you called that out. Because now I'm going to say, I'm going to work on my audacity.
Let's go.
My divine audacity.
Yeah.
Dude, well, tell me about your life. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's obvious that you are chock full of wisdom at your young, ripe age. And I would imagine you have tons of incredible encouragement to give. And that's the purpose of this podcast.
Yes.
Is for people like you who have succeeded, are doing incredible work. You are an incredible husband, father, human, and you're doing it for the kingdom and for a purpose and for a larger impact. And what are some ways that you've learned throughout your life that you lean on regularly to make a difference?
Let me tell you my story.
Yeah, I want to hear your story.
It'd be an honor.
I want to hear your story.
I mean, for the purpose. So, growing up, my dad was a pastor, and I thought I wasn't taught this, but this is what I thought, that following Jesus meant being a good Christian boy. And it was less about it was more about following rules and saying yes to the adventure with Jesus. And so in 10th grade, I was bored and I just began to, as I say, just walk away and started drinking, started hanging out with my buddies, doing all the things we shouldn't be doing. Kind of did the yo-yo back and forth with Jesus, would love him, but then just trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I love the movie SWAT, and so I wanted to join the military. I just got super into athletics and working out. Just built a life around that, and I actually ended up applying to the Citadel Military College. I got in, had my entire identity wrapped up into I was going to the Citadel. Graduated high school. The next week went to Senior Beach Week. Worst week of my life. Just not doing the things I should. While I was there, my mom said, "Hey, there's church camp. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." And so anyways, I was like, I need a little tune up with Jesus. That might be nice. So I went. None of my friends were going. I found that Jesus doesn't do tune-ups. He does absolute surrender. And I got there. I don't know what exactly happened, but I just said, you know what? I'm going all in. And I remember back in the day, I had my Nissan Maxima, I had all my CDs. I got in my car, I had, I forgot what they're called, but had all the CDs organized, and it was just all my Lil Wayne, all my music. And I just threw it in the trash. And I just said, Jesus, I'm going all in. Still planning on going to the Citadel. So this was June, 2 months later, I show up to the Citadel Military College. Thankful for mentors in my life who began to teach me how to, I began to say, hey, I want to follow Jesus. How do I do this? And they taught me to spend time with him daily. I got to the Citadel Military College, and it was a dream come true. It was everything I ever wanted. And long story short, wasn't the audible voice of God, but it was pretty close to it. I just knew that I wasn't supposed to be there. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I just in my, I call it your spirit, my inner man, just knew that I knew that I wasn't supposed to be there. So I called my mom. I said, Mom, come pick me up. And I told my mom, hey, if I ever call you and I want to quit, because it was told to me that was challenging to be there, I told her to say no. So she said to me, Jonathan, you said if I call you, tell you no. And I said, Mom, if you don't come pick me up, I'm getting a taxi. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm leaving here. I know I'm not supposed to be here. So I left, and I went to the worst place in my 18-year-old mind that I could have been. That was my hometown, and I started going to community college. So everything I had worked for, in the trash, if you will. And thus began the most lonely season of my life. All my friends had moved away. Everything that I had worked for, one by one, just began to disappear. And I discovered that God was more interested in who I was than what I could do for him. And in that isolation, in that loneliness, I began to fall in love with God. I began to go on prayer walks, spend time with him. He was the only one I got.
Whoa. I have several things that I want to ask about. First of all, Lil Wayne.
No, let's not about that part. Yeah.
I like that.
Hey,
I know some Lil Wayne, man. Back in my day, every now and then I'll still throw some on.
Nothing wrong with it.
Don't tell nobody. But I want to highlight a line that you said. You said that God doesn't work in tune-ups. He works in absolutes. Tell me more about that.
I mean, I think when we think of cultural Christianity, we think of Jesus as a garnish to our life. We sprinkle him in and say, God, here's what I'm doing. Here's where I'm going. Will you join me? And I just don't see that modeled in any of our heroes in the faith, any of the church history. What has happened of men and women who have made a difference for the kingdom of God and advanced his kingdom have said, God, we surrender our plans. We surrender our expectations. And in that, God meets them and does something incredible. And honestly, for me, in that 10th grade to senior year, I had tried doing tune-ups. I had tried adding Jesus in, and it doesn't work. And so for me, I just got to a place where I had to recognize that in and of myself, it's either all or nothing. And so honestly, it was kind of a hard place to be when you live this compromised life. On one hand, you're this guy. On the other hand, you're trying to live for Jesus. And so for me, it just was all in.
That's a really good lesson to learn. And that, I think it's so easy in life to get going, get busy, get whatever's happening in your why not me journey in your life, and almost push like the center of it aside for a little bit. And then you realize, I got to bring it back in. Yeah. I got to reel it back in. Hey, if you're open sharing this, you don't have to share if you don't want to.
I'll share whatever.
What happened at the Citadel that led you to this place of, I know it's not for me? And here's the reason why I ask. I think in life we go through seasons of asking, what am I being called to do? And when do I know to stay? When do I know to leave? And in my mind, that's one of the hardest things to discern. So like, how did you in those years being so young discern, Mom, I'm taking a taxi cab home if you don't come and get me? Because that's pretty bold.
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had a better answer for you, but really it came down to I knew that I knew. I mean, sometimes there are moments in life where you invite people in, you say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. There's wisdom in a multitude of counsels. But then there's times in life where you say, I know this is the right decision. I have to walk in it. And for me, it was the beginning of breaking off the fear of man. I remember before I went to Citadel, I was working in the fresh market. I came back. I went and talked to my boss and said, hey, I'm back. Can I work here again? Meat department. Hey. And my boss had applied to the Citadel when he was my age. And he pulled me aside, pulled me in the back hallway, and absolutely tore me apart. He was like so ashamed, so mad at me. And I am so thankful in my life that I experienced failure and disappointment early. Because you can't serve God and man. And for me, I cared so much about the outward appearance. I cared what people thought of me. I cared about athletics. I cared about all these things. I was building my house on this foundation of appearance. And God allowed me to disappoint people early. And because of that, at a young age, I began to ask big questions, probably more intentionally. I began to ask questions like, who am I? And we all ask that. But there was just a level of desperation that, like, God, I'm disappointing everybody, but I want to please you. I left Citadel even though I loved it. I'm trying to do what you want me to do. So I started asking God, who am I? And what do you want me to do? And God began to answer me. I remember first question was, who am I? I began to say, God, what do you think of me? Who do you say that I am? And I remember I was watching The Lion King, the original, the cartoon version. And it was a great movie. I thought, we all enjoy it. I left, and then at the time, I used to spend time with God at night. And I'd watched the movie, was about to go to bed, just reading my Bible. And once again, just felt something in my inner spirit. And, in the Lion King, Simba had run away from who he was meant to be. And eventually the monkey hits him, and he follows him on this journey. And and Mufasa appears. He looks down the water and he says, "You've forgotten who you were. You were more than what you have become. You were born to be a king." And that's what I felt like God spoke to me. He said, "Jonathan, you've forgotten who you are. It's time for you to take your place in the kingdom of God. I have called you to be more than you can ever become of yourself." And so I began this journey of saying yes to God. And at the same time, he began to show me the fear of man and how that I was cared too much about what people think of me. And I remember just asking God for help, saying, "Lord, I don't want to live pleasing man. I don't want to live trying to do all these things." And, it was this process, this journey of transformation. And one day I went on this hike in Uwari. And I was out there by myself hiking, and I heard a "ow." Now, I don't know if there's any zoologists out there, but I don't know.
That wasn't a bird.
Might be a pack of rabbits. I don't know, but it sounded to me like something scary. So first it started in front of me, then behind, then on one side, and then on the other. Ow! And so I was surrounded, and there was this holly tree. And so I ripped off a branch, and I began to say, "I am not afraid." And I was like, "I'm not afraid." And I was saying it so timidly. And I just began to say, "I am not afraid." And as I began to say it, I just had such confidence. I said, "I am not afraid." And it stopped. And Kevin, I don't know what it is. This is my story and I'm sticking to it. But something spiritual happened in that moment. There was something broken off of my life of fear. And I could tell you many stories of the fruit of that. But I one more story about Sandhills. There was kind of like a student union, and I was in between classes taking a nap in there. And, here I am, like, "God, I want to live in the fear of you, not the fear of man, what people think of me." And I'm sleeping, and across the room, I hear this guy. He's like a biker, scary looking guy. I hear him talking to this girl, and he says to her, "You're good for nothing." And I woke up, and I was like, it was the only time I've ever had the anger of God come on me. And I hear him say, "You're good for nothing," again. And it was like I didn't have a choice. I stood up, and across the student union, I don't want to say 100, but tons of people in between us. I said, "Who do you think you are?" And I'm like, "Wait, what did I just do?" And he said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Who do you think you are talking to her like that?" And then he starts yelling at me. We start yelling. I'm like, "If you want to fight, I'm over here, but you're not going to talk to her that way." And I'm a little bit like, what's happening? What was happening was I no longer cared about the appearance. I cared about principle, and that God cared more about who you are than what you can do for him. And in this loneliness, in this isolation, when I'm like, "God, what are you doing?" God was doing something beautiful. He was building character depth that I couldn't see yet. But when push came to shove, right, in this moment, it came out. And so I just began to see that God was taking my life and doing something beautiful.
That's rich. That is rich. I'm imagining that scenario in my head of you snoozing, waking up, and calling Big Biker Boy out. That is incredible. But I want to highlight what you just said. I'm glad he didn't
take me up on that, by the way.
Yeah, well, he was afraid.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
You're good, man. You scared him. Did your part? You were ready to buck up on
right.
him, though. Yeah, I know you were.
No, I was...
I think you talked on a lot of things that I thank you for who you are. That's the first thing we said. Thank you for who you are, because this is your lived experiences, your walk with God, your faith journey. The examples you're sharing now are the things that we as people need to hear. We don't hear enough people saying, "I don't fear man," or defining what that means. We don't hear enough people saying that it's not about comfort, it's about principle. That's not, and I think that's so much of what sets you apart. Someone outside might look at you and say, "You're a successful man. I want to be like you." And I'm learning that really you are. And what's even more beautiful and successful about you is the inside, the heart, the spirit, the mind. When you say fear of man, make sure I got this right. You're talking of not only physical fear of another person, but like fear of what they're going to say, fear of not having their approval, fear of not being liked by them. So you're ultimately saying, like, hey, you know what? I no longer care about what you think because what you say is not where my value comes from. I care about being in alignment with God. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you could say it like this. We find strength in where we invest it, and then we become dependent upon that source. So it's that old saying, it's like the things we own no longer we own, they own us. And it's a simple idea of like there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong. And these are great things that God has given us, but when those things become our God, they begin to own us, and we quickly find strength in those things. It's kind of like if using the gym analogy. It's like that's a great thing, but if we find our identity and our whole worth, our whole value in life is wrapped up in that, the moment we don't have that, we're lost. And so, yeah, we find strength in where we invest it, and then we become dependent upon that source.
And you weren't kidding when you said we're going to go to church today.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize, man. This is put that on a shirt. Put that on a shirt, man. That's so good.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that,
Yeah.
man.
Well, then from there, who am I, right? And then I began to say, God, what am I supposed to do? And I was at this, you would call it a crisis of belief. There's a lot of amazing things that happened while I was in community college, worked for a missions organization one summer, did these cool things. But at the end of the day, I began to say, okay, what am I supposed to do with my life? And so fast forward 2.5 years later, it was October. I was graduating Sandhills in December. Okay, I'm not supposed to be at the Citadel. I've been waiting. Here I am. And so I began to ask God, what do you want me to do? And instead of answering me, he gave me 2 promises. The first promise that I felt like God gave me was David. David came against Goliath, and he said, you come against me with sword, shield, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts. And so what I felt like in my spirit, God was speaking to me, was that, hey, I'm going to put you in a position of leadership that you're not qualified for, but I'm with you. And the second promise was of Moses. And Moses, God made a way through the Red Sea that nobody knew about. God told me, I'm going to make a way that nobody knows about, but I'm going to be with you. So October speaks that. I thought, man, I'll be in somewhere in January. November, December, January comes. Continue to feel like God's saying, wait. My parents are like, hey, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, I don't know, but here I am.
I'm waiting.
And they're like, that's not a good plan. So I eventually, I think it was February 19th, I just decided to go on a hike in the mountains. So I left my town. It was 39 degrees outside, raining, and I went on this kind of like spiritual retreat, if you will. And you don't know this about me, but I love my gear. I'm fully prepared for this hike, no matter the situation that comes. So I start hiking slowly little by little, I should say, all my gear begins to fail. I have a rain jacket. It becomes saturated. I had a map. It began to fall apart. My phone died. All these things, one by one, began to happen. And around 4 p.m. in the afternoon, 39 degrees outside, last time I looked at my phone, raining, I realized I was lost. And I had a little freak out moment. And I'm like, what in the world? I realized it now. I didn't realize it in the moment, but this was a picture of my life. I had built up my life on all the things that I could rely on, and I had found myself lost. And I caught myself and I said, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? Once again, this is my story and I'm sticking to it. I felt like in my spirit, God said, climb that mountain. I was like, because I'm in the mountains, right? And practically speaking, that's the worst direction I could have gone. I could keep going on the trail that I had been on. I could go back. It had taken me all day to get there. It's raining, cold, kind of afraid it's going to get dark. Like, am I going to be able to find, that's probably, or I could just stay there. Survivally, I could just camp out and wait for somebody to come find me. But I said, you know what? I'm going to climb that mountain. I began to climb up it. It was steep. There was like a fence on it, a barbed wire fence. I had to like crawl under it and just like, I'm like, where am I going? And I got to the top of the mountain. And there was somebody up there. It was like an abandoned, like it was an idle camp they use in the summer, but she was there like cleaning it up. And I said, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much." She gave me a ride back to where I was staying. I was saved, but there was something so significant going on, and that was that God was teaching me how to follow Him, and that from that moment I made a commitment to God that I will go where you send me. I'm not going on based off logically what I think is right. Here's the 4-year plan. Here's the 5-year plan. God, I want to go where you send me. And so I climbed the mountain. And so from there, I'm like, sweet, I had this really cool story. Now what am I doing with my life? It's February. March, April, May, June comes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, what am I doing? June, I get a call from my mentor's mentor, Jerry Daly. Planted multiple churches, kind of a legend of the faith, planted a church in Fayetteville. It's like a 10,000 person church. Whoa. Just somebody that I deeply look up to as his marriage. Knew him from a distance. He said, "Hey, Jonathan, I want to plant a campus ministry at App State. I'm too old to do it. Will you do it? Here's my plan. I want to get kegs of beer. I want to go to Party Central, and I want to give college students beer and tell them about Jesus." I was like, sign me up. My dad was like, "We can do that, but we're cutting out the beer." So I talked to Jerry the next day. I drove up to Boone from Pinehurst. I walked into the admin office. I applied the night before. I said, "Hey, listen, I just put an application in. What are the chances of me getting here in the fall?" They said, "Impossible." They said, "It's too late in the process." Remember, God spoke to me, "Moses, I'm going to make a way." I said, "Okay." I prayed about it. God said, "You're going to get in." So I went ahead and started applying for houses for that fall. And lo and behold, I got in. Now here I am, transfer student, didn't know anybody, but having this call to plant a ministry. A few days in, met one of my best friends of life, Anthony Papero. He happened to be a musician and would lead worship, and began a journey of just sharing Jesus and starting a college ministry. While we were in college, I was able to baptize over 50 students, just saw God do some incredible things. And learn this lesson that, God, I want to go where you're sending me, not where logically I should go.
Dude, you are bold. Like throughout all your lessons, your story, there is this boldness about you where you're not afraid to do something that seems completely crazy to someone else. Is that because you just felt so compelled by the Spirit to go do it? That boldness, I think it's a key ingredient. That boldness, that audacity, the two things you've shared so far, unspoken things that you carry and you do so well. And I think they've probably been one of your most commonly used tools in your Why Not Me journey. It takes audacity to ask the question, "Why not me?" And it takes boldness to pursue it after you ask that question. And I just thank God that He gave you that audacity, the vision, and the boldness.
I appreciate it, bro. Well, in the middle of that, all my friends were dating, right? So I'm like, "God, where's my girl?" So I can be bold on the outside, but I'm like, "Man, I want a girl." All my friends were in relationships, and so I began to say, "Lord, I really want to find the girl I want to spend my life with." Once again, He began to speak promises to me before I knew her. I could share a lot. What I'll share with you right now is Psalms 45. There's many principles, promises in there that I just felt like from God for me, for my wife, and our marriage. One was, her gown will be interwoven with gold. I have no idea what that meant. I'm like, all right, Lord, like this seems, you spoke to me in the past, I'll take it. Like, second one was, stringed instruments will lead her procession. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, cool.
Cool, so, sounds good.
September 2025, I met this girl at a bus stop She was reading a book, went up to her, started a conversation, exchanged numbers, started texting her. She didn't text me back. A few months go by, nothing ever happened. She was working at a hotel. I was there to celebrate my mentor Jerry's birthday. I was wearing a suit. She was working, and I said, "Oh, hey, Chandler." She informed me that she was going to India on a mission trip, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this girl's beautiful and she loves Jesus." I was like, "Well, when you get back, let me take you to coffee and we can talk about it." So, January 19th, 2016, first date, we went to Local Lion, and every day since then we have spoken. Not one day has gone by. A month later, I asked her to be my girlfriend. A year from that, asked her to marry me. And it's been a wild adventure. Can I tell you my engagement story?
Of course, man. Listen, I am a sucker for love.
Okay.
And I love a good love story. So don't ever spare any details about that. And when you say, I'm a bold guy, but then I'm like, where's my girl? I'm like, dude,
you get it.
I'm like, first of all, I get it. And second of all, if not for my girl, I would not be the bold man I am.
If not for our girls. Amen.
If not for Morgan,
yeah,
I would not be as bold, as confident, as whatever as I am today. God has used her.
Let's go.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
so tell me your engagement story.
So February 19th, 2017, we were in Pinehurst, took her on a horseback riding lesson. Not lesson, she was a very qualified horse. I'm not. So we went on a horseback riding trail thing. It was fun. Then we went to a train station. We opened 1 year dating presence. And then I had rented a private plane. So what we did, I took her to the airport. She's like, "What are we doing here?" And this plane pulled up, took off. We rode around on this private plane. We landed. When we landed on the tarmac, there was a rug and champagne and all this. And I looked at her and I said, "Today we've gone on a journey. We've horseback, train, plane, all the things." I said, "Here's what I want to tell you is that no matter how far you go, no matter where you go, I will never stop pursuing you. If you will marry me, I will give for the rest of our life, I will pursue you." And she said yes. And so we began the process of planning our wedding. Now remember the two promises, right? Coming back to those.
Interwoven golden dress.
So first thing, she went to her grandpa. I said, "Hey, I'm getting married." He said, "I've been saving a piece of gold for you. I want you to use this piece of gold to buy your wedding dress." So her gown will be interwoven with gold. The second thing was that she will be led down the aisle with stringed instruments. So fast forward, a lot of cool God things that have happened, but we had finished planning our wedding. She's like, "Ooh, we're done. We can now enjoy it." She goes, "There's one thing that we're missing." She goes, "I've always wanted to walk down the aisle playing a cello. Someone playing a cello." She said that to me. I'm like, "We were out of the budget. We're over it." She's like, "I know." Next day, somebody she has not talked to since middle school, a girl named Grace, called her. She said, "Hey, Chandler, I saw that you're engaged on Instagram, all that good stuff. This is totally random, but I would love to play the cello at your wedding. Can I do it for free?" And we're like, "Absolutely."
Let me think about it. Let me pray about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So, fun fact, I also in high school, even when I wasn't fully committed to Jesus, I made a commitment to save myself for marriage. And at the same time, I began a savings account that anytime I would just throw money into it randomly. So when we got married, I had a lot of money to spend on our honeymoon. So I rented an overwater bungalow in Panama. So we flew from Raleigh to Miami to Panama City, the country, got on a taxi, got on a domestic flight, landed in Bocas del Toro. A boat picked us up, took us to a private island, had overwater bungalow. 100 meters off was a reef, so we would swim and see the fish. We actually, while we were there was baby turtles being released.
What?
And it wasn't America, so the rules weren't as, we could do whatever. So I actually helped them swim out to that reef, and was unbelievable. So, we really thankful for my mentors, established, hey, we want to do a lifetime of romance. We don't want to be roommates. We don't want to be partners. We want to pursue each other and be romantic all the days of our life. So
I think that first of all, that's an incredible story. And of course that is your engagement story. When you said I rented a plane, I'm like, come on, man. Come on, dude. Save some for us over here.
Yeah, I know.
That's incredible, man. That's beautiful. But I something that I honor and I've learned, and I talk a lot about with my guys, is how important it is to have a relationship in your marriage, to pursue your wife and to love your wife. And, you know, it can easily become, like you said, we're roommates, we're partners. I pay the bills, you cook, and you know, whatever you divide your responsibilities with, you keep the kids or whatever. And it's easy to fall into that. And I could see how people get there.
Absolutely.
But marriage is fun and it's meant to be sweet, and it's meant to represent the love that God has for us and for his church. So through my life, like I've gotten to this point where I like explain the role of a husband in marriage. Is like, okay, well, we're called to love our wife like Christ loved the church, and Christ died for the church. So therefore, we're supposed to serve with everything we have and give everything of us for our wife, and that also means our heart and our emotions. And because of that, she feels loved. She feels seen. We have a healthy relationship. We laugh. You know, it's romantic. It's partnership. It's development. It's everything.
Yeah.
And that is what the most rewarding thing.
Absolutely.
In life, man. So thanks for sharing that. I think it's really important. And fellas, if you're out there looking for a wife, take some notes.
Yeah, pray.
JT's got you. JT's got you.
God's got you.
And my ladies, hey, take notes. Make sure your boy's doing that.
No scrubs, right?
Yeah, no, we don't want no scrubs.
That's right.
We don't want no scrubs. And that's really incredible. Any other life lessons that like takeaways that you think you want to share about your story?
You know, you're talking about you're talking about, you know, having a life with your wife. You know, Ecclesiastes, one of my favorite books. Could totally talk about that. It'd be a totally different conversation. But as I read Ecclesiastes, Solomon, I think, wrote the book. He prescribes 3 things for a meaningful life. One would be to enjoy wine in your wife. In other words, hey, have good relationships, have great marriage, enjoy life. Number 2 is live in the freedom and the knowledge that God is in control. And then number 3 is to enjoy the work that God has given you. And it goes on, it says it in different ways, but essentially it says that meaningful work is a gift from God. And so, you know, after Chandler and I got married, I moved to Pinehurst. We moved to Pinehurst. I started working at church as a pastor, youth pastor. She started working in a shelter, helping victims of human trafficking, and just began to say, God, we want to be used. And we began to fall in love with work in a good way, in a healthy way, in a balanced way. You know, we graduated college with $60,000 in debt, and we just started saying, how do we get out of this? So, you know, in the course of 7 years, we've owned 5 homes. In between those, we've rented places, just hustling. But you know, for about 5 years, I was in full-time ministry, loving it. You know, part of my story and how I ended up here is about 4 years ago, I was leading a camp. We were doing like our summer camp. It was kind of like the pinnacle of my career, if you will. We were taking 200 students with us. I ended up getting COVID. My wife and I both got long haul COVID. Totally different story. Just kind of a crisis of belief once again. You know, for over a year, just really crippled with the effects of that. Thankful for that in the fact that it began to once again ask God big questions. Something to the effect of, God, what's next? And, you know, there's that old illustration of the frog being boiled in water and never jumping out. Felt like the water around us was boiling. Just felt like we were in the wrong environment and that it was time for change. So my wife, Chandler, and I, we began to just say, God, what's next? Kind of zoomed in on 2 different options. One was India, like, hey, let's go be missionaries in India. Let's go travel the world. Take our children, you know, we have 3 beautiful girls at the time too, to India or to Boone. And just began to once again say, God, what's next? What do you want for us? And just came to the conclusion that God was saying Boone. And so did all kinds of things, was applying everywhere, didn't get any phone calls ever. Just like, what in the heck? Like, we thought, like, man, it's time to change. Why isn't anything opening? I eventually just said, you know what, we have to start making moves if we feel like this is what God's telling us to do. So we went and sold our house, and we went under a contract for a house in West Jefferson, which for those who don't live around here is about 30 minutes outside of Boone, and had about 2 months to say, okay, we got to figure something out. And so just went to the church, so amazing, so grateful for the opportunity. Just went to them, communicated our desire to say, hey, this is, we just sensed that we're supposed to go to Boone. I was getting pretty nervous financially. Like, what are we going to do? Was thinking about applying to some very basic jobs. Nothing against those, just felt like in my career I was past that. But it was like, God, if you're calling us here, you'll make a way. I, at the time, was mentoring a kid. His name was Asher, and I went to his dad for career advice. And his dad happened to be Adam Wimberly. His dad said, I'll hire you. I said, but you live in Pinehurst. He said, it's remote. And little did I know the amazing door that was opening before me, and what a huge blessing. And that as I followed God, there were tools in my tool belt that I was missing. And meeting Adam, that door, that opportunity would totally add a new tool to my toolkit, if you will. And as you know, that's where I work now. Love it. And God just made a way. And it's been a lot of crazy, amazing stories in the in-between, but for a lot of nuance, but that's my story.
I am like, man, that's first of all, incredible storytelling.
Yeah.
An incredible story. I had no idea that you were mentoring Adam's son.
Yeah. I had no idea what Adam really did other than he was a recruiter. So I was like, hey, I want him to look at my resume. I think he's somebody I look up to from a distance. Went to his house and said, hey, here's my resume. And he hired me.
I just want to underscore that you were doing something for his son out of a calling and the kindness of your heart. Like, you were worried about him, and let me steward his heart and his soul and mentor him. Let me just give to him, and God took care of you.
Absolutely.
You were pouring into your purpose, this passion of yours, and discipling this young man.
Yeah.
And you said, doesn't matter, I'm just going to do this. And that was what led you to the door that I would say changed your life.
Absolutely.
And look at you now, where you are working on incredibly big things. And I want to stop and I want to underscore this because I think this is very important. I think so often, I included, get caught in this trap of we're doing things for people to have things to give back to us.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to give my gift with a closed hand and a string attached to it. Or I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit me, or it has to benefit me more than it benefits you.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a metaphor that you just showed that you did for this young man. I'm sure you did a ton of incredible things just for free because it was what you were being called to do. And you're like, I'm going to be the best I can, and God's going to take care of me. And look at you go. And I think that it's important to remember that as humans in life, on our Why Not Me journey, whatever our calling is, that the very first thing on our priority list of why we do things is not how much money can I make. It should be, is this the impact or the purpose I'm being called to do? Let me go give that gift towards a purpose, towards the impact, towards my mission.
That's good.
And watch God provide. Man.
Well, let me say this. The Bible says, unless the seed falls to the ground and dies, it cannot bear fruit. And as we walk out the journey of life and we begin to say, God, I want my life to be a matter. I want to have significance. I read these stories of heroes in the faith of, when we say, why not me, right? I think it takes audacity and boldness to ask that. But we have to understand that the life that Jesus calls us to is a life of death. And that if we are actually going to say, God, why not me? That we think, okay, he's gonna open this door. It's going to be a big business. It's going to be this thing. It's usually not. It's usually a lonely community college, financial crisis. I thought, God, you said this, but the opposite happens. At least that's my story, right? Like every time I felt like God said something, he was going to do something. Usually the opposite happens. And there's that crisis of belief. There's that place of saying, God, what the heck? When what God is doing is he's allowing something in us to die because he's exchanging it for something better. You with me?
He's letting that seed inside of you fall, die, and bloom or blossom or
and
grow.
He's exchanging it for something more beautiful.
Yeah, 1,000%. I see it in myself too. I'm thinking
Really?
about like, yeah, there's been countless times in my life where my world was crumbling, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, I'm trying to do things, and it's almost like the way that I described it was, yes, I was dying to myself, and what that meant for me was, I am no longer my number one priority. I have to reorganize. It's my calling through faith, my purpose that he's given me. That's my number one priority. And, for my life, that is to be a husband, a father, and a motivator, and an encourager, and an activator. I'm called to do those things. And I got to put that first. And then somewhere down the line, I come in. And, I got to take care of myself, right? I got to fuel myself and love myself so that I can pour my cup out. And then there's a level of financial freedom that you need to be able to do these things. But, like, I've learned that when you prioritize your calling, the seeds that is wanting to grow inside of you, that ultimately takes care of you because you have a healthy, thriving body. So that's really cool. Hey, listen, give me something. Give us something, the audience something, an encouragement. What do you want to share?
I just saved 15% or more on my car insurance by switching to Geico. I'm just kidding. Sorry. You can edit that out.
That's stand-up comedian. I love it.
Man, follow Jesus. You and I are on this journey together of being very serious of conquer your mountain. And I've never had the opportunity to really tell you the full depths of my story. Obviously, there's more to it, and we've heard bits and pieces. But just going back to being lost in the woods, and it's like you and I have this connection with Josiah and with Adam and these other people that God's bringing together to unite. And a little bit of us is like, hey, we have some ideas. We got the academy, all these incredible things that this just God's bringing together at the same time. Or there's almost a God, you're the captain of the ship. Wherever you want to go, wherever you want to lead. So I would say if I'm leaving anything, it's to dream big. At the same time, lay that dream at the feet of Jesus, but then go after it. If he speaks, God still does miracles. God still is moving. The same God of the Bible is still living, and he's still active, and he wants more for your life. You were created on purpose, for a purpose, for such a time as this. Why not me?
Ooh, why not me? Goodness, JT, that's incredible, man. Thank you so much for who you are, your time, your boldness, your audacity, your humility. Man, I love everything about it. Thank you so much for the encouraging wisdom story. I am excited for your future. I'm excited for CYM. I'm excited to help others, how to help others conquer their mountain, see themselves differently with you. And I'm excited to see where this journey goes. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
Love you.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Why Not Me podcast. I hope this episode inspired you and challenged you, and it was something you needed to hear. And if it was, please share it with somebody, a coworker, a friend, a family member, a significant other. You never know. They could be just one conversation away from experiencing real breakthrough. If you don't already follow or subscribe, please do so on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And remember, the growth you want, the life you want, the impact you want, all of that can change by asking one question: why not me? I'll see you next episode.